Hello, today I'm doing my top 10 favorite books that I read in 2022. So let's get started. I read some really good books this year, but I narrowed it down to 10. I don't own all of them. I just grabbed either the first book in the series, the night like I just grabbed whatever I could off my shelf. So I'm not going to be showing the actual cover for some of them, but for the ones that I actually own, I will. So let's get started with number 10, Promised Neverland, Volume 1 by Kayu Shirai, and the art was done by Posuka Demizu. Hope I pronounced that right. I'm not actually sure. But this follows a group of kids who are at a house, at an orphanage, that they kind of suspect that something more sinister is happening. I really enjoyed this first volume and this first arc of this story, but I can't necessarily say this is an all-time favorite series because the rest of it kind of goes downhill. But this first volume and the volumes in this first area are fantastic. I cried a lot during this first arc, and it just kind of it made me feel a lot of emotions, and I just am really happy that I read this because oh my god, this is heart shattering. And yeah, I definitely recommend at least reading the first volume. Next, we have The Mask Falling by Samantha Shannon. This is The Mind Murder, the second book, because I only own the second and third book. I started out not loving the Bone season because I was young. I hadn't read an adult book before, so I struggled. But then I went and reread the first book and the second book, and my god, I fell in love. I am so glad that I went and reread them. And then I read Mask Falling, and oh my god, I'm so happy. I read it in 2 days. I was encapsulated. I was enamored by the book. I'm so happy that I decided to read this again and actually read it physically because I read it originally on audiobook, and I don't think that was a good way to go. But of course, I have to wait so long between each book, and yeah. But so excited for whenever the next book comes out. Next, we have every single book that I read of Realm of the Elderlings, but specifically my top two are Assassin's Fate and Fool's Errand. Those are my top favorites from this series. I can't necessarily put them much higher in this list because I read almost the entire series this year, except for the first four. So they kind of all blur together for me because of how quickly I was reading them and how much I was reading them. But I still really love this series. I'm so glad that I read it, even if I didn't quite get to it during the catch-up book club. I'm glad that I read it now. Next, we have Stormcaster. This is the first book in the world, which is by Sid Williams-Chima. This is The Demon King, which is part of the Seven Realms series. And the book that we're talking about is Stormcaster, which is book 3 in the Shattered Realm series, which takes place many years after this first Quartet. I went into this not really expecting much because I didn't love the first two books in the second series, but I love this series. So I didn't expect much from this. But the way my mind instantly changed when I started Stormcaster was fantastic. The Shattered Realm series follows like many different characters. Each book has a new different perspective that we get. So that one's kind of hard to explain. This series, however, follows two main characters, Rhaesa and Han Alistair, who come from very different backgrounds. Han is a kind of underground thief, and Rhaesa Mariana is the princess to Princess Heir of the Fells, and it doesn't really take off until really the second book, which is where kind of it becomes the series, whereas this one is kind of more sorry about that noise, but this one is more about kind of introducing us to the world, whereas the rest of the series we go to a different part of the world, which is like why I love the series so much, because it's not a magic school, but it's a school, and I really like that aspect. Next, a chonker of a book, we have book 4 in the Fortuna Sworn series by KJ Sutton. This is the best book in the series. My god, this book is massive but fantastic. We really get more perspective on Fortuna and the world and how different things become because of the decisions that happened in the previous book. I love this series. It's very dark and very emotional because of Fortuna. Fortuna is she's very grim and very kind of, I don't know how to describe it, but she's really hard to be inside of sometimes because of how emotional and how hard her mind is. But I love this series. I love the series so much. I got this recommendation from Becca in the Books, and I'm so glad that I've read this series and will continue to read this series when book 5 and book 6 come out, because those are the last 2 books in this series. Next, we have my absolute favorite manga from the year and my absolute favorite manga of all time. I love this series, especially going from the anime to the manga. I'm so glad that I did that, because having to wait so long between each season just makes it hard. But that is the Demon Slayer series by Koyoharu Goto. I have no idea. I feel bad. But this series follows a boy named Tanjiro Kamado. That's his name. I couldn't remember it. But basically it follows him, who is a charcoal seller, who goes up the mountain to a town to sell charcoal. And when he comes back, his family is slaughtered by a demon. And it follows him and his sister, who is the only survivor, but has become a demon, as they explore this new world as Tanjiro becomes a demon slayer, but has a demon for a sister. This series is so fantastic. I love the anime, I love the manga. I read the entirety of this series this year, and I'm glad I did. I'm glad that I have gotten and read this series. We are getting into the top 4 with my favorite fantasy romance of the year, or paranormal romance. Is weird, but that is Her Soul to Take by Harley LaRue. This, wow. This is great. I read it again after Becca recommended it, and it's very dark, and very kinky, because it's a BDSM romance, almost, kind of, yeah. And it, so it follows Leon and Ray. Leon is a demon who is summoned by Ray, kind of by accident, and he wants her soul. Can't exactly remember why. I literally read this like in a day, so it's kind of hard for me to remember all the details, but I really loved it when I read it, and I really want to get to the sequel, but I need to get the physical book because ebooks are hard for me right now. Alright, we're getting into my top 3 with the Dragon Republic. Oh my god, the Dragon Republic. I didn't really love the Poppy War. It took a while. Not much happened until like the ending where everything happened, and that's really what made me want to read the Dragon Republic. The Dragon Republic is really dark, and it goes into how someone can change based off of a dramatic event that happens to you. Book 1 follows Rin, who goes to a military academy to train to fight in the wars. But book 2 follows her after the events of this book, obviously. I love Rin as a character, but especially in book 2. I'm excited to see where the finale takes us, how things wrap up. I'm excited. Now we have my top 2. This next one was my favorite of the year. It's definitely one of my favorite books of all time. Until I read my number 1, this was my favorite book. The Beast by Katee Robert. Wow. This is part of the this is part of the Wicked Villain series by Katee Robert, where we follow a different Disney villain with either the heroine, the prince, or both. This one happens to be both. So we have Belle, so Isabelle, Gaetan, and Beast, as they kind of come to terms with their relationship and try to fix the problems they had in the past through sex. I love this book so much, and I can't describe why. It just I just love the relationship between the three. There's so much heart in this book, and I love this book so much. But there is a book I love more, which we're going to talk about now, and that is A Lady for a Duke by Alexis Hall. I could have put another book by Alexis Hall on this, but it wouldn't feel right because I didn't love it as much as I loved this book. I read this all in one day, which is shocking because of the length, but I loved this book. It follows a girl named Viola Carroll who she was in battle at Waterloo, where she was presumed dead because her past self, her male self, died because she wanted to live her life as a woman. This is one of the best romances I've ever read. This is my favorite book of all time now. Just the way that this man, Justin, the Duke of Greenwood, loved this woman was fantastic. This is the way to do a trans romance. He worshipped every ground, like the ground that she walked on. I love this book. Oh my god. And that is my top 10. One of the best books I've ever read was on it. 2, actually, The Beast and Lady for a Duke. I'm so thankful that I read these 2 books, and thankful to one of my best friends, Harry, who recommended me to read this book, and Lamia and Ash for this book, and quite a lot of the books that I read this year were because of them. And I'm so thankful for all the friendships that I made in this year. This was such a fantastic year for me and for reading. I read 176 books, I think, in 2022. Obviously I'm filming this after because I wanted to make sure that if there was any last minute favorites, I wanted to make sure I had them on here, but there wasn't. So yeah, there was an honorable mention with My Dress Up Darling, but it just didn't, I love that book, the manga, but it just didn't impact me as much as the top 10. So tell me what your favorite book was of 2022 down in the comments below, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!